What's up, nerds, and welcome to the Nerd History Podcast that exists to do what all nerds love the most, dive deep into the nostalgia of nerd culture that made us who we are. Each episode, we spotlight one particular nerd history event from that week and take a deep dive into the fandom, the lore, and the nerdy facts. I am Radio Matt, the Director of Content and Resources for Love Thy Nerd and the Station Manager for LTN Radio. And with me today and forevermore is my amazing bride, Adedra.
Hey, man, what's shaking?
Don't have a cow, man. We are the Nerd Historians, and today on the show, we are taking a look at the history of The Simpsons, which celebrates its 37th anniversary this week.
You know, I feel a little better about that because I'm younger than The Simpsons. I feel good about that.
Just barely, just by months.
Yeah, you're older, but I'm younger. Hi.
Hi. So The Simpsons, of course, heavily features hijinks of three kids that are almost identical in age to our kids.
Wow. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
When I think about all the stuff that Bart Simpson got into as a 10-year-old.
I'm currently more thinking about all the stuff that Maggie gets into. All of her evil schemes and clever ways to accomplish things and kill people, or almost attempted murder. It was attempted murder on Mr. Burns, not full murder. Spoilers. Anyway, Natalie, this week, I'm telling you, my wife,
What's her name?
over here, got like these little chocolate, those little lint ball, with lint with the D in there, chocolates, and she had them up in the middle of the counter. And while I was in like a little meeting on Discord, she was able to acquire a pair of scissors, like big scissors, adult scissors, and use them to reach across the counter with the little arms on her tippy toes and pinch one of those little candies and scoot it her way, and then unwrap it and eat it.
Okay, I saw the wrapper. She didn't like just unwrap it. She like
cut it open?
tore the heck out of it.
Oh.
I don't know if she cut it open. Like it was ripped. It was not just
I don't think she knew how to open it.
unroll.
Yeah, I don't think she knew to pull on it.
Right,
untwist.
right. It was.
Yeah, she was.
It was very aggressively gotten into.
Give me that chocolate.
My dad's coming quick.
My meeting is over. I walk in there and she's just holding this little ball with a giant chunk taken out of it. I said, "How did you get that? That wasn't within your reach." I said, "Why did you take mommy's chocolate? I hungry."
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I just love that she found adult scissors. That's the boys.
Apparently very
fault.
easily. Yes.
They cut things open and then just lay the scissors out wherever. Yeah.
Our house is a minefield. I'm surprised she hasn't hurt herself more than any of our other children do.
Right.
But
well, today she ran into a wall. Yeah.
she's in the mode right now where she likes to put blindfolds on too and just walk.
Yeah.
Today something was on her head and it slipped down over her eyes and she just decided not to stop walking.
She's like, well, it's fine. I know my way around.
But like you see this room behind me, if you're watching on video, see this room behind me. These shelves actually have like, what are those things called that the shelves are resting on?
The shelf holders.
Shelf holders. That stick out a couple inches from the shelves themselves because we couldn't find ones exactly the right size. So I use those to hang other things on. But she decided to come in here, put that blindfold on, and start walking in that direction. And I had to grab her before she smacked right into that wall. And one of those things, take the blindfold off.
Sheesh.
She's a daredevil. And yeah, she still hasn't figured out how to climb out of her crib.
Okay. I
we
was
have signs
putting,
on this?
yes, I was putting her down for a nap. And she lifted her leg all the way up to the side and said, "I want out," and then proceeded to jump. So we're almost there.
Wow. Wow. Yay.
Yeah.
Another thing to look forward to.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into it, shall we? Let's take a trip back to 1987. Now, this isn't the original episode of The Simpsons. That was the Christmas special of 1989. This was the premiere of The Simpsons as a short on the Tracey Ullman Show. They were early sketches. They were very short sketches. They were usually used as they were always used as bumpers in between the live sketches on the Tracey Ullman Show. They were conceived by Matt Groening originally, and it was supposed to always have been a riff on the American Family. And it became so popular on the Tracey Ullman Show that Fox greenlit a full series that I think a lot of people assumed was just a Christmas special because that was the first episode. It was Simpsons roasting on an open fire, Christmas of 1989. So barely it started in the 80s when it comes to the series. Those early versions of the character on the Tracey Ullman Show, which if you're watching the YouTube version, you'll see in the corner here, very rough.
Yeah. Compared
to the versions we know today. Very rough, bumpy, strange, wacky movements of faces, and, all kind of stuff, which they've paid homage to every now and then. Bart Simpson's face will go one way and his jaw will go the other, still in the show, which pays homage to the way they talked back in the sketches. But in the 1990s, The Simpsons really cemented their legacy. That first season was short and, all right. It was good.
Kind of like the first season of The Office. You just have to get through it.
They had to find their bearings. I think it was a good mix of what you came to expect from the shorts and trying to find their new footing in long form storytelling. It was all right. But literally by the second season, they got it. They had it. They knew what they were doing. Episodes started hitting really well. It offered a mix of humor and satire and a lot of social commentary, which resonated deeply with mostly adults and kids that had parents that didn't know that they weren't allowed to watch The Simpsons.
Didn't know that
thought it was cartoons.
Not a cartoon.
It's weird to think about that this was one of the earliest adult animation shows.
Yeah.
If not the earliest.
Right.
Like a full show.
Right.
Like we had Beavis and Butthead around the same time. And I think those are the only two I know offhand that started at that time.
At that time,
in the early 90s. And, parents didn't know. My parents didn't know for the longest time that The Simpsons was a show I wasn't allowed to watch because they never did their due diligence and they never watched it. And there wasn't like internet to go look it up.
Right. Right.
So I watched that every Sunday and it was great. I loved it.
Explains so much, babe.
And back then, it was super edgy.
Right.
Like nowadays, adult animation is just so quote unquote edgy that it's just disgusting.
I hate it.
Impossible to watch. I don't understand. I don't understand anybody who finds half of the adult animation shows out there palatable, let alone entertaining. But there's some that ride the line. I think Matt Groening's shows ride that line, which lean into the I enjoy it more. Simpsons, Futurama. Oh, Futurama I might like better than The Simpsons.
And I don't think I've watched it all. I think I was watching it with you and I was like,
yeah,
I can do without it.
Yeah. You gotta, I feel like you would like it more just because there's so much sci-fi in it. It's such a science fiction based show and pokes fun at so much sci-fi stuff, but whatever.
Whatever, break my heart.
It's fine. Break my heart. But also, it was also a very smart show. Like there was a lot of dumb, childish humor, but there was also a lot of stuff that was really based on a lot of sophisticated philosophical references, literary references, humor from think pieces that you would read in college. Like it's I mean, there's whole college classes now dedicated to The Simpsons and the writing of The Simpsons. It's not just, hey, we're going to come watch The Simpsons. Like, there's real critique and real stuff to draw out of it beyond just the baseless humor that you find in it. There is a lot of slapstick stuff as well. You know, it is a cartoon, and it is meant to be funny. And in the early 90s, and this still continues today, but I don't think it hits as hard today just because it's been going on for so long. But in the early 90s, you had a lot of guest voices. Pardon me.
Yeah.
And that was also a big deal, true. Kind of a first thing as well. Mm-hmm. Guest celebrities on an animated show. Right. It wasn't really done prior to this. And
who's your favorite guest?
Well, we're going to talk about that because that was actually our question. Give me a second. The show has hosted an eclectic mix of guests. A lot of them come on and play themselves. Yes. Stephen Hawking came in, the Rolling Stones.
The cake guy.
The cake guy? Cake boss? The cake boss? Duffy? Duff? Yes. The cake boss?
Yes.
I think that's the cake boss. There were two cake shows going on at the same time.
Oh my god!
Is he the Ace of Cakes?
The Ace of Cakes, yes.
He's not Cake Boss. He's Ace of Cakes. No, I don't know. I don't know which one.
That guy.
Anyway, Duff, yeah. Gordon Ramsay's appeared. Yeah. You know, all these, but all the early '90s celebrities as well. A lot of them. Lady Gaga appeared in one of the worst episodes that Simpsons has ever made. Just don't watch it. It was so bad. Skip that one.
Because of her?
No, not necessarily. Okay. The story was just dumb. I mean, I applaud her for being on it, but whoever wrote it was fired, I'm sure. But they actually had a lot of celebrities that came in to make recurring guest voices. Some almost on a weekly basis that technically weren't main cast. They were recurring guest voices, such as Phil Hartman. Phil Hartman played Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure, but those were guest voices. He was a guest celebrity for those episodes, but so good.
Yeah.
Again, one of the most tragic things in the world of comedy was losing Phil Hartman so young while he was crushing it with the Simpsons characters, crushing it on news radio, just starting the movie comedy business with House Guest, Jingle All the Way. Golly. And Futurama was supposed to be a vehicle for Phil Hartman. He was supposed to be Captain Zap Brannigan.
Okay.
Like, he wasn't going to be in the main group, but like that character was made specifically for him.
Wow.
Yeah, and it hurts. It still hurts to this day. But I did ask LTN, so we'll jump into our Ask LTN section. What was the greatest recurring guest voice on The Simpsons? Spoiler alert, they're all from the first 10 seasons. Some of them have gone beyond that, but
who cares?
We all know none of them that came after are going to make this list. So here were the options that we asked the LTN Discord. Albert Brooks, who's voiced multiple characters, but he's mainly known for Hank Scorpio, the guy that brought the Simpsons in to another. Had them move to another town. Remember, and it was all like this perfect town. They lived in this automated house, and Marge started drinking wine because she couldn't do anything in the house to clean up anymore. And Hank Scorpio turned out to be like this evil James Bond villain kind of guy, and Homer was just just a normal guy working in his evil lair. Do you remember this episode?
I think I do. And
he was like a really friendly boss. Like, Homer, I appreciate, a man's got to make his own path. It would mean the world to me if you killed somebody on the way out. And he also voiced Russ Cargill, who was the head of the EPA for the movie.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Lower the dome. Yeah, that guy. The second choice was Glenn Close.
Okay.
Who voiced Mona Simpson, Homer's mother. in several episodes over the course of several seasons.
Yeah.
Really beautiful and heartbreaking kind of story throughout that whole thing.
Wow.
Made me cry a little bit.
Aw.
Third choice was Kelsey Grammer.
Well, yeah.
Famous for Sideshow Bob. D was Phil Hartman. Multiple characters, like I said, mainly known for Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz. E was Jane Kaczmarek, who plays...
Is it
Judge...
Kaczmarek?
Sure. Judge Constance Harm. So she's the judge character that we start to see more and more often toward the later seasons, and I think still today. But like the no-nonsense Judge Judy-esque character. F is John Lovitz.
Oh, well,
Multiple characters, including Artie Ziff and Jay Sherman. Jay Sherman, actually a character from a completely different adult animated show called, I don't remember what it was called. The Critic? The Critic. He was a movie critic. And he did a crossover episode with The Simpsons to judge a film festival that The Simpsons were putting on, the Springfield was putting on. And then we see him again in an insane asylum going, "It stinks. It stinks. Yes, Mr. Sherman, everything stinks." But yeah, Artie Ziff, I think, is the main character that he recurred as Marge's former love interest, who continues to try to win her heart throughout the years and is insanely rich, but also full of himself. And therefore, he never pulls it off. So anyway...
We all have a guy like that.
Of all those, I'll give you the top three. What do you think number one was?
Kelsey Grammer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
47% of the vote.
Wow. Yeah. I was
Sideshow
that's
Bob,
who I'd
Kelsey
vote for.
Grammer.
I mean, Sideshow Bob, of course.
Number two.
Phil Hartman.
Phil Hartman. And number three.
This one I don't.
Oh, I forgot one. I forgot the number three. I didn't list number three. Number three was Joe Mantegna, who plays Fat Tony.
Oh, yeah.
Fat Tony.
That one. I think that's number three.
Yeah, that's number three. Good
Awesome.
job. You
Thank you.
guessed that correctly.
3 out of 3.
Thank you.
Roll.
Thank you for voting. LTN Discord. Make sure you're checking out the polls section. Usually, most weeks, we'll have a poll in there.
I've voted a couple times. Yeah.
You have?
I have. Yeah.
Are you sure? I was going to say serious, and then sure, and then it started like it sounded I was going to cuss, and I had to really commit to something.
It really did.
Are you sure?
I'm sure, yes.
I didn't even know you've logged into the LTN Discord since joining it.
Facebook.
Oh, well, that is not what I said. I was saying LTN Discord, make sure you check the polls section.
But you've done polls on Facebook for exactly the same thing, and I voted there.
But
do they not count toward this?
I do one or the other. I didn't do this one here. I'll either do it in Discord or in Facebook.
Very recently that I...
Well, it wasn't for The Simpsons.
Facebook. I know it wasn't The Simpsons. I think it was a Goofy movie, maybe. Or the one before the... Or the one before... It was for something, and I was like, oh, this is for our show.
You're
going to
correct.
vote.
I probably did put something in there recently, but it wasn't for a Gooby movie. And it wasn't for The Simpsons.
Our children constantly correct me if I stumble on my words, and it's his fault. Constantly.
Gooby movie. Political feuds were a common occurrence with The Simpsons. But I think the most well-known is with George and Barbara Bush as Mr. George H.W. Bush, the first one, was giving his, I don't know if it was State of the Union or if it was some other campaign speech, but he made a whole thing of like, America needs our families to be a lot more like the Waltons and a lot less like the Simpsons. And they took that personally.
So they went after him.
They made
I'll show you.
one of the greatest episodes of The Simpsons ever. Where they have George and Barbara Bush move in across the street from The Simpsons, and it's this Dennis the Menace style episode.
Yes.
With Bart and George.
I do remember that.
And it was so well done. It was so freaking funny.
Yeah.
Both of them got their licks in. It was really good. It was just like a prank war eventually with Homer joining in.
Right.
It's one of the greatest episodes of all time. Go check that one out if you haven't seen it yet. But this show has been around so long that it has been able to be a social commentary for society in several different eras of society. To see what they're commenting on back in the 90s is so night and day different from what they're commenting on today. And it's a strange dichotomy to look at how different the episodes are. But there was a moment, Daedra.
Uh-oh.
There was a moment that The Simpsons jumped the shark. Do you know?
Did too far?
The instance I'm talking about. The episode where people who loved The Simpsons from the beginning were like, maybe this should be the end of it.
Oh.
It was the first episode of season 9. This was the episode called The Principal and the Pauper, where Principal Skinner is revealed to be an imposter, where he was in the army with the real Seymour Skinner. Seymour Skinner was thought to have died.
I remember that.
Armin Tanzarian goes to deliver the bad news to his mother. His mother, Seymour Skinner's mother, had such bad eyesight and was so old, assumed that this was her son returning from war, and he just rolled with it and assumed his identity and became the local elementary school principal.
I think I remember
and then
that.
It was found out that the real Seymour Skinner was actually in a POW camp, a prisoner of war, and he escaped and came home only to find out someone else was living his life. I didn't hate the episode when I first saw it, but so many other people did, because it ruined the actual character of Seymour Skinner, which we knew so well at this point.
Yeah.
And then the end of the episode was everyone wanted Armin Tanzarian to be Seymour Skinner. And so they tied up the real Seymour Skinner to a train, sent it down the road, said never come back. And the judge ordered everybody to forget any of this ever happened and moved on. And that was such a divisive way to end that episode for people. They're like, nope, Simpsons is over. But many people do believe like that 9th season was probably the last good season. But that's really only the mindset of the people who watched it from the beginning.
Yeah.
I will say that there was, without a doubt, and there's no debate about it, a good chunk of years where The Simpsons was really garbage. And that happened like in the 2010s, the late 2010s, where it's just like every episode was just self-referential humor from previous episodes of previous seasons. And it's like, I don't know if it was trying to be meta, but if that's what it was, it just felt lazy. The humor was not good. There was a whole lot. I think we talked about this on a recent podcast for something else, but there was a lot of episodes where they're just like, I don't know, let's tell some stories where they're Romans.
Oh, yeah, you did.
For no reason. And like,
it's gonna go in this
right.
The Simpsons in this time.
Right.
If they were in this time.
And that was just it hurt. It physically hurt.
Yeah.
But
I don't know where I stopped watching.
I stopped watching about then. I've only watched a handful of episodes since. But there is a lot of stuff on the internet saying that these recent seasons are really hitting for the current generation of like young adults.
So my question to you would be, are you going to make yourself go back to where you stopped watching?
Heck no at all.
And watch all that. So you'll just pick it up where it started getting good again?
I'm more willing to go in reverse.
Oh.
Watch last year's season. If that was good, go one more back. And just keep going until I reach a season where like, okay, well, that's good. Because you don't have to go in order. Because nothing or very little is
nothing changes.
Canon. Yeah, like
They're all the same age.
There's only a few things that have stuck around, and that's a few people who have died.
Mm-hmm.
And
how old is the lady that plays Marge?
I don't know. Julie Kavner. How old is Julie Kavner?
He wants to ask Alexa.
I do, but
I saw him.
Alexa's busy at the moment.
Yeah.
Being unplugged. Julie Kavner age. Let's find out. She sure sounds old. She's 73 years old.
Well, that's not as old as I thought. I really thought she was. No. Because her voice sounded so...
Yeah. It's so
older.
much raspier and older
sounding
than it was when they started.
I figured 80s.
Really? Mm-hmm. I could see that. Anyway. There were some controversies, and these were kind of recent controversies. And I'd say a little unfair.
Okay.
Because, again, the show started in the 80s.
Right.
And all of a sudden, in like 2018 or somewhere around there, suddenly everybody had a problem with Apu being voiced by a white guy. And then the black characters being voiced by a white guy. And so things changed. And it's really weird to jump from classic episodes of The Simpsons to new episodes of The Simpsons and hear like Dr. Hibbert talk. Mm-hmm. Dr. Hibbert does not sound like Dr. Hibbert. And Lou from the police force doesn't sound like the Lou that we grew up with. Not that it's bad, it's just strange.
Right.
Because we got into this weird time where... Now, I understand the Apu one a little bit more, because that was more like stereotype-esque. And that character was always supposed to be a stereotype of convenience store, an Indian running a convenience store kind of thing. That's the stereotype, which even President Joe Biden has endorsed, where he said, you can't go into a 7-Eleven without a slight Indian accent. He said this on camera. No one cared. For some reason, he gets that pass. Anyway.
Matthew.
Well, I said controversies. But, I mean, it was Hank Azaria and Harry Shearer. They played most of the characters of any race. They were the big, like, multi-spectrum voices for characters on the show, of which there are hundreds of characters. And that's kind of changed, which, for better or for worse, the voices changed, but that doesn't mean they're not funny. It's still funny. It's just, it was strange that it happened so late in the game. Right. Yeah. Where they were approaching 30 seasons, I think, at that point. And like, okay, now? Now's the time? Okay.
Now we're going to change.
But that's fine. People evolve. Society evolves. Let's go for it. Speaking of evolving, The Simpsons evolved from TV to a movie.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. So much later than people assumed would happen. Because that was kind of the way things went with TV shows.
6 seasons and a movie.
Yeah, you would have a very popular TV show, and then you get a movie. Eventually, you get a movie. Or the other way around, there would be a movie, and then it would get a fairly popular TV show or cartoon afterwards. Mm-hmm. But that was like the question I remember was always asked in interviews with Matt Groening as The Simpsons went on year by year. When's the Simpsons movie coming out? And it would always be some joke about it's never coming out kind of thing. We're never going to make a movie. Quit asking for a movie, blah, blah, blah. And so I almost didn't believe it.
That the movie
when we first saw the trailer. And the trailer was like a spoof on Superman Returns. If you remember, it was like a Superman shirt, and it was panning around that logo, and then it zooms out, and it's Homer wearing a really tight Superman shirt and underwear, sitting on the couch, dozing, holding a beer. He's like, what? You know, it's a movie for The Simpsons. It's not Superman. Anyway, we got the glorious things like Spider Pig.
Yes.
Spider Pig, man.
Spider Pig. I will say.
That's all I remember from the movie.
It was fun that we got to live through the time of them announcing the Simpson movie and all the hype and everything. That pink donut.
The pink donut
was everywhere.
Pink donut was everywhere.
Everywhere. Oh my gosh.
That is now known as the Homer in a lot of donut shops.
Really?
Strawberry donut with sprinkles.
Yeah, it was everywhere. Mm-hmm. And we even made my parents go see it in theaters.
That was a mistake.
Oh, my dad.
That was a real big mistake. I don't know what we were thinking. What were we thinking? We knew they didn't like The Simpsons.
Right.
Why did we ask them to go with us? And why did they agree?
You just wanted an excuse to go again, I think.
We had already seen it.
How many times? You saw it, I think 3 or 4 times
I'm
in
sure
the movie
I did.
theater.
Saw it at least 3.
I remember it was at least 3.
I loved everything.
Yeah. I think you went and watched it by yourself, and then you told me, babe, you have to come see it. Because at that point, I had stopped watching The Simpsons with you. And then we saw it, and then for some reason, we took my parents to see it. Yeah.
And I remember looking at them every now and then going, this is a bad choice. And it didn't help that at the beginning, there's like a lot of kind of religious humor at the beginning. That's not so nice. Uh-huh. And I'm like, oh, no. How did I not think about this?
This is terrible.
And then there was the Bart Simpson scene where he has to skateboard naked.
Yes.
And it's like everything in the world blocking his private parts. And then they swerve. They swerve everybody and do the thing that nobody's ever done and block out all of Bart Simpson except for his private parts.
I forgot about that. And it's right in the beginning. Oh my God.
And so when that happened, I'm like, they're gonna revoke permission for me to be married to this woman. Oh man.
Oh my God.
This show, and that is kind of evidence of it. This show was the beginning, like we said earlier, of the adult animation thing. Mm-hmm. This and Beavis and Butthead, I think, were both like the heavy influences of adult animation from the onset. And shortly after that, it seems like it came way later when we lived in the moment. But both of these shows have now been around at least half the life of The Simpsons, which is a really long time. Mm-hmm. And that's Family Guy and South Park.
I'm really sad the Family Guy's lasted that long.
Yeah. But those first few seasons, before it got canceled the first time, I loved them at the time. I don't really care for them now. I've gone back and watched a couple episodes. I'm like, nah, that was my humor. As was South Park. I watched South Park all through high school and college. I don't know why.
I did like King of the Hill.
King of the Hill was different. King of the Hill was about The Simpsons. Like it was a family oriented thing that was made to be semi-realistic. Mm-hmm. Family Guy, on the other hand, was not. Not. And I think it's more like Seth MacFarlane's humor I just got sick of. Especially when it got oversaturated, where we had Family Guy and American Dad and The Cleveland Show and all 3 of these happening all at once. That's why I like Bob's Burgers. Bob's Burgers also very Simpsons-esque and about a family. Really funny stuff. Bob's Burgers is great. It might be my favorite current animated show aside from Futurama.
Wow.
So I feel like there's a good split between like the family focused, still trying to teach you a lesson even though being kind of stupid show, and the just all out raunch fest shows that I don't like. Yeah. And It's a fine line sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I will admit, some of the South Park episodes, really good messages. It was one of the weirdest things to say, and Bubba and I even have had long conversations about this back when we were in college, like, because we were both watching it at that time. Mm-hmm. I'm like, look, it was gross the way they got to the lesson, but that was a lesson everyone needs to hear. Like that kind of thing. And I don't know if they're still like that. You knocked over Ned here. I don't know if it's still like that, but it was back then. Anywho.
I think Bluey has taught us that you can do lessons.
Preach it.
Without
Preach it, sister.
the raunchiness.
Preach it. I love it. All right, let's move on to something fun. The Simpsons predicting the future.
Are you doing a thing?
Excellent. The Simpsons have eerily predicted the future on many occasions.
Oh.
We're going to go through some of the most famous ones.
Okay.
Okay. First off, smartwatches.
Okay.
In a 1995 episode called Lisa's Wedding, Lisa's fiance is shown speaking to a phone on his wrist. The concept was a far-fetched idea at the time of what the future was going to look like, but reflects today's smartwatches perfectly, which didn't become popular until 2015.
Wow.
With the launch of the Apple Watch. Yeah.
Wait, right?
Yeah, 20 years in advance.
Wait, I can add.
All right, next up, the FIFA corruption scandal, soccer. In a 2014 episode, You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee, the show depicts a FIFA official being arrested for corruption. Just 1 year before the real FIFA scandal emerged, leading to several arrests and resignations within the organization.
Wow, it makes me wonder if they
They knew something? Yeah. All right, the Higgs boson particle. The God particle, essentially. In a 1998 episode, The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, Homer Simpson is shown standing in front of a complicated equation on a chalkboard. It turns out that this equation actually predicted the mass of the Higgs boson particle almost exactly, which wasn't scientifically proven until 2013.
Really?
Isn't that crazy? Next up, Disney acquires 20th Century Fox. In a 1998 episode, When You Dish Upon a Star, a sign outside of the studios reads 20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Co. This was a full 19 years before Disney announced it was acquiring 20th Century Fox in 2017.
Wow.
FaceTime and video calls. Also in the Lisa's Wedding episode in 1995, it not only predicted the smartwatches, but also the widespread use of video calls using devices that closely resemble modern-day smartphones and tablets, an idea that was less common until technologies like Skype and FaceTime became popular. Mm-hmm. Two more. Greece's economic crisis. In a 2013 episode titled Politically Inept with Homer Simpson, a news ticker mentions that Europe puts Greece on eBay, a humorous nod that eerily predicted the severe debt crisis that would engulf Greece 2 years later.
Wow.
And finally, and perhaps the most famous prediction, came from the 2000 episode Bart to the Future, which depicts Donald Trump as a former president of the United States.
That's crazy.
This was 16 years before Trump would actually be elected.
Guess where I saw Mr. Trump recently?
Where?
On the Little Rascals movie.
Oh, he was in the Little Rascals movie? He was in the
Little Rascals movie.
I knew about Home Alone, too.
Yeah. He's, the rich... You haven't seen it in a while. You probably don't even... The rich kid that's trying to steal Darla, the little crush girl.
Yeah.
He plays his dad.
Wow. I didn't know he was in that movie.
I know. I was like,
to go see a scene from that.
I told the boys, it's your
president. So crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more, but those are the most famous and most accurate. There's a lot more that are near predictions, similar predictions to the way things happen. But as we said, The Simpsons was really good, and it might still be really good, but was in the past anyway, really good at commentary on things. And oftentimes those things were biblical lessons, or at least moral lessons. And they often were in line with Christianity, or at least Christian adjacent. You know, a good heart behind it.
They poked fun.
They poked fun at Christians, but so do we. So who are we to judge?
We're allowed to do it. Okay.
I mean, one of the most notable examples, like the pop right here, is Ned Flanders, who was the overbearing Christian parent, the one who was so afraid of drugs or alcohol that he was so afraid of stimulants of any kind, let's put it that way, that his favorite snack was white bread with a glass of water for dipping. Like very their kid said freaking once and he lost his mind. Oh, my freaking ears. Like, it's really, really funny stuff back then. Really, it's really the overbearing, like, homeschool parent kind of mindset. But there have been a lot of episodes focused around Flanders, and sometimes like his the battle with his faith, doubts with God. He has several conversations with some of them very genuine feeling, like those angry conversations that we have every now and then when things are going wrong and we don't understand why and we don't understand what's happening. You know, they depicted those pretty well. And he would always kind of come back to a place of contentment, faith unshaken, move forward, that kind of thing. He would grow throughout the years, and he would lose it sometimes, and he would go off the deep end or do something he wasn't supposed to do, and quote unquote live a little, and have again those crises now of like shame and guilt, same kind of stuff that we all go through. It's, you know, outrageous, you know, humor, exaggerated humor aside, not a terribly inaccurate depiction of a lot of Christians, if we're being real, in the whole scheme of him anyway. One of my favorite depictions, if we're being honest, as well, of a Christian on TV. It's like him, Shirley Bennett from Community, really like that. The guy from MASH. What's his name?
You asked me, so now it's
your favorite show on earth. Your second favorite show. Quit knocking over Flanders.
I see his face.
Pastor, not
The
pastor.
Reverend
McGillicuddy from MASH.
It'll come to me.
Homer and Lisa versus the Eighth Commandment was an episode that discusses the morality of theft and the importance of being honest, reflecting, of course, the biblical command of not stealing. Bart sells his soul, which we actually talked about recently.
We did.
We had a friend who was trying to walk into a store, and the automatic doors wouldn't open, and she like bumped right into it. And then someone else tried to come in right behind her, and it just opened perfectly for them.
Mulcahy.
Thank you, Father
Mulcahy.
Thank you. And that's exactly what happened in an episode of The Simpsons where Bart sells his soul. He tries to walk into the Quickie Mart, and because he doesn't have a soul, he just right into the door. And then someone else walks in, and yeah.
Yes.
And he also tries to breathe on the sneeze guard to write a message in it because someone else had did it. And he goes, and nothing comes out. And it's one of my favorite lines from the Bullies. Way to breathe, no breath. It's one of the best insults ever.
What did he sell his soul for? Was it like a money or a candy?
I think it was food. Yeah, I don't remember.
Sold it to Millhouse, right?
For something stupid.
He's like laughing at him and
yeah.
Yeah.
Please give me back my soul. I don't have it anymore.
Yeah, I forgot Milhouse traded it for
He
something.
traded it
too.
for something stupid from the comic book shop. And so he went to the comic book shop for Comic Book Guy, which is his name. And he said, "Oh, yes. I found a buyer for that soul very quickly. Someone who is very interested in purchasing little boy's soul." And then it turned out to be Lisa.
Right.
And Lisa bought it and gave it back to him. And it was a big deal. But it delves into the concepts of having a soul, redemption, sparking discussions of just the nature of belief, consequences of our actions. Mm-hmm. They've even quoted the Bible on several occasions, often incorrectly, but sometimes correctly. They've quoted Luke 6:31, "Do unto others as you have them do to you," which was used appropriately, I think. The voice, it echoes, the episode's focus on empathy and understanding other people, treating people with respect no matter what their beliefs, and if you disagree and stuff like that. Something all Christians should be doing. It used Matthew 7:1 and 2, which we all know is the judge not lest you be judge thing, and that was used in a way that a lot of Christians don't like. Where
stop judging me.
Yeah, where it's like other people saying, "Hey, don't judge them for doing something that is sinful." But that is kind of what this is saying. Because the whole verse, do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way that you judge others, you will be judged. And with that measure you use, it will be measured to you. It's basically saying, unless you are without sin, you will be judged the exact same way you're judging someone else. So if you're going to be overly harsh on how you judge someone else's sin, especially someone who is not a believer and someone who doesn't actually live by the code of the Bible, you too are going to have that same judgment against you, even though you have already come to Christ. Like it's saying, look, that's the measuring stick you're going to use, and that's how we're going to treat this thing. It's like, forgive others or you will not be forgiven. These kind of things are
I feel like that speaks to do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Yeah,
right.
All of them.
Like, do you judge yourself that harshly? Right. I feel like that's what it's saying.
During the 90s, these were the verses that were used to shut Christians up, because Christians then too were very vocal and very adamant on forcing people who didn't believe in Christianity to follow Christianity's rules, which is just backwards. And they knew that. And we're trying to tell everybody that with their own words from the Bible. Like, hey, that's not how this works. There were episodes where Lisa struggled with her faith and Marge did not struggle with her faith and was trying to help Lisa believe. And while ultimately Lisa decided to leave Christianity, we did see it portrayed in a very positive light. Marge clinging to her faith in times of doubt and times of pain. Like they've not been explicitly anti-Christian in the show across the board. There have been some very, very pokey, funny jokes at Christians, some that are a bit more sharp than they need to be, such as in the movie, but not outright trouncing it. It does find a lot of the good many times. And again, sometimes a lot of that we see from Flanders himself. Flanders can be a very uplifting character in certain scenarios, which we also see in the movie. He's very kind and like mentor-y to Bart. And while it doesn't go great, instead of helping Bart be a better kid, it just turns him into a guy that hates his own dad and wants Flanders to be his dad. But it does eventually pay off towards the end, where he kind of learns, okay, yeah, we can have this relationship with my dad too. But in the Simpsons-y way, where it's just very weird and funny. The Simpsons has transcended its origins as a cartoon comedy and become more of a rich source of cultural commentary, moral debate, and sometimes even spiritual reflection. Its ability to tackle this wide range of topics with humor and with depth is unparalleled. It's not just an American entertainment source, but this has really become a medium for exploring, as silly as this sounds, the human condition, human nature, society. And the fact that it continues on to this day is a testament to how well it has done that over the years. Yeah. This is a silly show with a cartoon called Itchy and Scratchy that the kids love to watch. That's the most violent thing on TV. With a father who routinely chokes his son by the throat. With a nuclear power plant that is constantly leaking nuclear ooze into the town and creating three-eyed fish. It is a nonstop thrill ride of the stupidest jokes you can imagine, intermixed with reality. Taking reality's a lens of reality and putting a goofy cover over it to see things at its most absurd, which is what I love about it.
Very satire-y.
Very satire-y. Mm-hmm. And the longevity of it, again, is such a nod to the fact that they haven't lost sight of that. There might have been seasons, where they're like scraping the bottom of the barrel a bit, but they get some fresh blood in there and getting some new stuff. Wow. Basically, when Conan left, it was rough. Bring Conan back. Anyway, that being said, I need to watch some more of the newer episodes of The Simpsons. Because I don't really know what they're like.
You got me wanting to watch the movie again.
I know the movie is pretty good. It's all on Disney. We know you have it. They were very happy to get The Simpsons. The Simpsons we talked about this this was 2 podcasts ago. Golly. Sorry. Time is a cruel mistress. Back in the Back Row Morning Show, Mo and I had talked about the big streaming services and their anchor nostalgia content. And so at the time, it was Netflix had Seinfeld.
Okay.
Disney had The Simpsons. Peacock had The Office. And I think it was Max has Friends.
Okay.
So all these really long-running fan favorite shows to keep people subscribing to it just so they can watch those whenever they want. Those. And that's what The Simpsons did for Disney Plus almost right away.
Really?
Almost from the beginning. They bought it in 2017. They're like, let's put all The Simpsons on there. It was the most controversial thing on Disney Plus when it launched. Because it was just like all the Pixar movies, all the Disney movies, all the Disney Channel shows, The Simpsons. TV PG-13 or whatever it was.
Right.
And TV 14, I think. That was like now they got, all the Netflix versions of Daredevil and stuff that were TVMA and all this, and that's fine. But back then it was a lot.
Yeah.
And they made a mistake. Do you remember the controversy around it when they first launched?
I don't remember anything coming about it. Talking about it.
They launched it and they reformat all the episodes to widescreen without giving you the option to go back to the full screen version. And The Simpsons is so notorious for using all of the frame with jokes. And so there were often a lot of jokes above the head and below, and they were just cut off.
Oh.
And people just started noticing so many instances of this that they started this massive fan campaign of give us the original versions, give us the original 4.3 aspect of those older seasons.
Wow.
And they capitulated. They did it, which good on them. It took them a while, but they're like, okay, we hear you.
All right.
Give us a second. We'll put it up.
It's coming from space.
Can you give it a second to come back from space? What do you think of The Simpsons? Are you a bigger fan of the early days or the newer stuff? We want to know. Tell us on the socials at Nerd History LTN.
And subscribe. Dang it.
A Gooby Movie.
You jerk. Subscribe to the Nerd History Podcast via the Love Thy Nerd YouTube channel or on Spotify, Apple Podcast, etc. And find us on lovethynerd.com/nerdhistorypod. That is not my typical line. I want you to know that I noticed. That's not what I usually say.
You can also find us on the Glue Network, GLU Network, on your Roku or your smart TV device. Just go to the Love Thy Nerd channel on the Glue Network, and you will find our Nerd History Podcast playlist there. So, yay.
Hey.
And we also have our daily Today in Nerd History short and article that comes out every day at lovethynerd.com/nerdhistory with photos and nerdy facts. Go. Jeez.
Flanders.
Dang it. You're treating him like he's nothing at all.
That was you. Mister.
You stepped on my joke.
I'm sorry.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
So you're
nothing at all.
Keep saying it.
I was hoping you knew what it was.
I know what it is.
You just made me feel stupid.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks a lot. And I had to make a joke, and I feel all self-conscious. Let's talk about the nerd future of The Simpsons. The question is, will The Simpsons ever end?
Maybe like at 50 years.
50 years? There is one editor, current editor, that said, I don't think so. Why would you? Why would you end it?
Why would you?
Yeah.
It's going to be so hard when the main characters start leaving.
Yeah. So in 2021, Matt Groening told USA Today, my standard answer is that there's no end in sight, because anytime I speculate on the show ending, the people who work on it and the diehard fans get very upset. So I always just say that there's no end in sight. But many speculate that the only way that the show would end is that the main characters die.
Right.
And I mean, there have been some characters that have died. Some voice actors, like the voice actor behind Edna Krabappel, passed away, and I'm sad that I don't have her name. I'm sorry. But they've either found new voices for characters, or those characters have just been retired and new characters have come in to fill the gap. Mm-hmm. But over the course of, this several years, they have lost voices. Phil Hartman, of course, probably the earliest, I think the first person to die who was a regular on the cast. Mm-hmm. And we just didn't see those characters anymore. We didn't see Lionel Hutz or Troy McClure anymore. We got Gil. He replaced like the lawyer role, the sad sack character. You got to give old Gil a shot. I tell you. And I don't know if we got any movie character. I think they just lean more heavily on what is the guy's name? The Arnold Schwarzenegger ripoff. Gosh, I can't remember the character's name. Oh, I'm so mad. McBain, the guy who plays McBain.
Right.
You know who I'm talking about, right?
Uh-huh.
That is the joke.
Yeah,
that guy.
But I don't know who.
Anyway.
But do you think that when the inevitable happens and one of these actors die, because, sorry, we don't live forever, do you think they will try to keep going and then just they'll lose people and that's how they stop?
The
or will they just be like, okay, we're done?
The issue comes with how far they're willing to go replacing voices. Because if I'm not mistaken, they've only replaced voices when the original actor is no longer voicing the character, but not when they've passed away. When they've passed away, they have retired that character. And we just never see that character again, not even in flashbacks, or at least not flashbacks where they say anything.
And also, with AI.
That's what I'm saying, is how far are they willing to go? They don't even really need AI for voice work. There are so many amazing voice actors out there that can nail all these voices just as good as the original characters.
You think so? Like
100%.
Just as good? Like
100%, especially since they've been around for so long.
Not noticeable at all?
I don't know if it's going to be noticeable at all, but there are... I mean...
What?
You could... I'm not going to grab you. Tom Hanks's brother voices Woody in like everything that's not the movies. And nobody can tell. The toys, the video games, it all sounds like Tom Hanks. But it's not Tom Hanks.
I don't know. We've got a Buzz Lightyear, and I know
Buzz
that's
Lightyear's
not
different.
Tim Allen.
They don't do a good job with Tim Allen. But there's people like Brock Baker out there and other voice artists that have had the entire run of The Simpsons to perfect those voices. And it's very possible that they could just keep it going by replacing it. The issue would come with, would fans accept it, though? Mm-hmm. It's just like when Chadwick Boseman passed away. Would fans accept a recast? They knew no, they wouldn't. You can't just put another character and say, he's T'Challa now.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Black Panther in the MCU.
Okay.
Chadwick Boseman.
I don't know names of people.
Chadwick Boseman had cancer. Didn't really tell anybody. It got aggressive. He passed away after just those 2 movies. And so when it came time to further the Black Panther story with the second movie, I said 2 movies. I'm sorry. He was in 4 movies. He was in the 2 Avengers ending movies as well. But they had to decide what to do, and one of the options was just recast T'Challa. Make him have a different guy step in. Mm-hmm. But they knew that fans wouldn't accept that because Chadwick Boseman was Black Panther. And it's different from replacing Rhodey in Iron Man 2. You know, it hadn't had that legacy yet. We couldn't replace Rhodey now with somebody else.
Right.
And so I don't think fans would accept it. AI, especially not. But even another voice actor, I don't think they'd accept it.
Yeah.
Even News Radio tried to replace Phil Hartman in spirit by bringing in one of his best friends, John Lovitz, to play a similar character. And they got canceled that year. I mean, they did their best, but with Phil Hartman gone, being pretty much the name of the show.
Yeah.
Dave Foley had Kids in the Hall. Sure, whatever. The guy that played Matthew, Andy Dick, was popular, kinda, at the time. Who cares? Phil Hartman was the star of that show. And it was very clear that the show couldn't continue without him. So if Dan Castellaneta or Julie Kavner passes away, or Nancy Cartwright, any of them really, I just don't see it. Yeah. And that's 4 voices.
Right.
You lose just one of those voices, and I think it's over. You can't Roseanne this. You can't just wake up and like, Marge died.
Right.
And now she's not in the show anymore, and now the show is about us without Marge. Can't do that.
Right.
Can't do that with The Simpsons.
How sad.
We're talking a lot about death, and I'm very sad.
What a depressing note.
What a depressing nerd future.
Man.
Well.
Sorry, guys.
We're going to go.
We're going to go cry into our pillows.
Cry and rub salve on our old wounds.
Gross. That is disgusting.
You act like you've never rubbed salve on me before.
I have never been more appalled at a phrase in my life.
Oh, gosh. are kicking off our first two-parter.
Oh.
As we discuss the Infinity Saga of the MCU.
Okay.
The first.
I didn't know it was a
run.
two-parter.
It's a two-parter, and here's how.
Here's how and here's why.
we'll kind of be working backwards because we will discuss Infinity War and Endgame next week.
Okay.
Because both of them will celebrate their anniversary next week.
So I need to watch those. Okay.
Yeah. And then the following week, we will cover pretty much everything that led up to that grand finale of the first saga of the MCU, as Iron Man and the first two Avengers movies celebrate their anniversaries during that first week of May. So,
wow.
Two-parter. So next week, just focusing on Infinity War and Endgame and what that meant to superhero movies and film in general. And just all the emotions that came with it.
All the things.
Good. All the things. And then after that, we're going to talk about just like the dawn of the MCU and how big of a risk it was to start with Iron Man and just all this kind of stuff.
We're not talking about it right now.
Can we?
No.
I don't want to wait. Here we go. Next show right now. Once again, I am Radio Matt.
And I'm Daedra.
And remember, in the past, present, and future,
Jesus loves you, nerds.